You're a lifelong Republican.
Yes.
Okay. We have John McCain running for president. Is John McCain going to change the policy of the Bush administration that so many of us object to?
No.
What do you think?
No, I do not think that
And
John
why?
McCain's policies has become an echo chamber of Bush with regard to the exercise of war powers, spying within the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the claim that terrorism is the greatest, danger to the history of civilization in the last hundreds of years. It'll be the defining moment of the 21st century, indicating that he'll maintain the Guantanamo, all the enemy combatant statuses, the denial of due process with military commissions. And I say, it's not to suggest that international terrorism isn't a problem. We have murder in the United States is a problem. We have, 18 to 20,000 murders every year in the United States, but we don't just throw out the Constitution because there's a danger. There's a price, and so to speak, to freedom and liberty, which means we don't have policemen on every corner in all of our homes because we understand there are other elements of life more important than living risk-free. Risk-free means living with everybody in prison so no one will hurt anybody else. And that's the end of a whole reason for the United States.
President Obama. If Obama becomes president, do you think he will make significant changes in the future? Or are things so set? In other words, has George Bush given the next president such a toolbox of power that's going to be very difficult for even someone who wants to change things to change things?
Yeah. I think we're in the latter situation, John, that Obama, I see, just keeping the executive on cruise control in the bloated space that has come to be associated with President Bush and Vice President Cheney. And one of the reasons why I make that observation is he hasn't stood up as a presidential candidate and said, I'm not going to be exerting these powers that Bush has. I'm shutting down Guantanamo. I'm not trying people by military commissions. I'm not holding people as enemy combatants without accusation or charge for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I will never violate the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. I'll go to amendments, but I don't have any inherent authority to do all these things. All the world is not a battlefield. I'm not going to have the CIA kidnap people abroad and torture them and throw them into prison without any accountability. All of these things that would fit into a soundbite, Obama hasn't addressed whatsoever. And this becomes especially telling because he would be distancing himself from perhaps the most unpopular president at this time in his presidency in the history of the United States.
One of the
George
lowest
Bush was
ratings ever
28%.
in terms of popularity.
Yeah, 28%. And Vice President Cheney, who's the alter ego, is at 18%. And that just shows, I think, that he's still himself politically very frightened and alarmed at looking at being weak on terrorism, if you will. And he may even be, in some sense, more boxed in by this fear of perception of weakness than McCain. Because we know right now the campaign themes being developed by McCain are Obama, he's inexperienced, he's weak, he's not tough enough, he wants to talk to Ahmadinejad and Iran, we can't trust him. So in order to make up, if you will, or overcompensate for that perception, Obama could end up being worse than McCain.
Last question. A recent book came out called Are We Rome by, I think, Cullen Murphy. It's a good book. It states all the parallels. And the question is being posed, are we so close to the Roman Empire? And we all talk about the rise and fall, but the fall of the Roman Empire. Are we Rome? And are we headed for a fall?
Well, we certainly have that trajectory, but I'm someone who's disinclined to think that history is foreordained. Certainly, the kinds of weakness and the readiness of the Romans to embrace bread and circuses and to have emperors there instead of
military
Roman Senate.
expansion.
The military, right, fighting wars
Corruption of
everywhere.
high office.
Yeah, buying up into high offices are there. But things don't automatically repeat themselves. I say, history, biography, what we make of this opportunity as Americans is what's going to count. And we need to be alarmed, if we will, by seeing where the trajectory is headed. But it's not inevitable that we necessarily succumb. Of course, we need to recognize in terms of the urgency of changing course that all previous empires have basically followed the decline and fall of Rome. I remember the Queen's Jubilee, 1897, Great Britain. Britannia, Pax Britannia, ruled the world. And everybody at that time thought the British Empire would never crumble whatsoever. It had fought wars in Afghanistan, the Boer War in South Africa, it was in Burma, everywhere, in order to preserve its reputation and its pride as a big power. And heck, 20 years later, they taught that they were the apex forever. They were nothing. And then soon, they became an inkblot, a pawn on the international stage. And that just shows that there is this vulnerability of empire into developing an arrogance that will then meet its own fate, which is not going to be a happy one. But we still have free speech here. We still have the opportunity to change things, and it's up to us to actually avoid the destiny of Rome.
Thank you, Bruce.